Saint Thomas Aquinas is one of the most recognizable names in Christian history and the Christian intellectual tradition. While generally held up as the perennial philosopher of the Catholic tradition, especially among so-called Catholic realists, he is also loved, perhaps begrudgingly, by many in the Protestant world, especially the so-called Reformed scholastics. There is also a lot of confusion about Thomas, whether he was an Aristotelian or a Neoplatonist using Aristotelian language. Contemporary scholarship has moved into the latter camp, that actually Aquinas was a Neoplatonist using Aristotelian language and concepts. When it comes to the understanding of Aquinas' cosmology and humanism, we have to understand some basic facts about the great church doctor. First is that the cosmos, which includes, of course, the earth, is hierarchical. Second is that there is distinctiveness and particularity to all forms of life, or as Aquinas says, levels or genera of life. Third, all the genera of life have particular souls to each of them. Traditional Christianity, especially Catholicism, borders on pantheism to untrained eyes and ears. For every inch and crevice of the cosmos to have a soul sounds like pantheism to the theologically and philosophically uninitiated. But we must remember what I just outlined, that all genera of life have particular souls to them, is not pantheism, nor is it particularly unique to Aquinas' theology. You find this view in the philosophy of the Greek philosophers, the Stoics, the Neoplatonists, the Aristotelians. It is not, therefore, a form of monistic pantheism because all do not share a common soul, but everything, all forms of life on earth have distinctive souls, and the souls they have are not divine. Following the Greek tradition, there is the vegetative and the appetitive souls, which are not divine, and then there are the souls particular to humans, which are granted by God in Catholic theology. In Summa Contra Gentiles, Aquinas presents the clearest portrait of his ladder of existence, the hierarchical reality of the cosmos, the great chain of being. From here, we will understand why Aquinas' cosmos exudes with soul, that is, life. For nothing can be without soul, nothing can exist without a generative function which the soul provides. Thus, every level and genera of the cosmos is intimately interlinked with everything else. Aquinas has, as traditionalist Christianity demands, a deeply holistic, integrated, and interconnected world of intelligibility, as most of the church fathers in the patristic era defended and expounded upon in their theological works and homilies. Readers familiar, again, with the classical tradition of philosophy, that is, the Greek tradition, Neoplatonism, Stoicism, and Aristotelianism, will see obvious parallels to those Greek traditions. Aquinas begins by charting out the different layers of existence. There is non-living matter, the earth, plant life, animal life, and human life, all of which possess a soul. Then, above matter, plant, animal, and human life, there exists the angels, and then God as the divine mind and the ultimate generative principle. Aquinas continues in extrapolating on the differences of these genera. As he writes, different kinds of things produce in different ways, those on a higher level producing in a more interior, intellectual way. This is important for us to understand. Higher forms of life, which technically begins with plant life, produce in a more interior intellectual way. The interior intellectual way of life is on the account of the soul. As Aquinas explains, in plants then, there is this sign of life, anima, that something within them moved towards some form. the interior reality of plants moves to their completion. For the tree's juice, as it comes out of the tree, first makes a flower, then later a fruit separate from the bark of the tree, though joined to it, a fruit which, when mature, separates entirely from the tree, falls to the ground, thereby producing, by virtue of its seed, another plant. Thus the chain of life recapitulates itself. Plant life, containing the vegetative soul, embodies this interior generative principle in a non-intellectual manner. But as Thomas also explains, without the non-living matter of earth, the plant can never come into being. Thus, non-material life, the earth, is directly tied to plant life, to animal life, to human life, to the angels, and ultimately to God. There is not a single layer of existence that is not in some way interconnected. For example, if the transcendent realm of the angels and of God was disconnected to the human life without the intellectual principle of the soul, then humans could never come to a knowledge of the angelic hosts and of God. Thus, beginning with rocks, dirt, and matter, which provide the sustenance for plant life, which provide the sustenance for animal life, which provide the sustenance for human bodily life, but humans also possessing the intellectual soul, capable of knowledge of things transcendent, are all tied together in a cosmic ladder of existence. As Aquinas also explains, there is another level of life, of course, above plants, that of animals, and the animal soul is endowed with sense awareness, so that they have a form of production peculiar to them. Aquinas goes on to explain how all animals possessing this animal soul have sensations. That means, minimally, animals possess the ability to feel and have spatial and even emotional awareness. And any of us who have any intimate relationship with animals, especially pets, probably feel the same way. This was not an uncommon ancient or even Christian view. Animals, of course, have feelings, they have emotional awareness. This was seen in some of the Greek philosophers, especially, say, Plutarch, who argues that you can see the true soul of a man based on how he treats animals. And then, of course, you have some of the great Christian medieval saints, Francis of Assisi or Bonaventure, who also had very strong views for the protection of animals. Animals, however, possess in them the vegetative soul as well, for animals are also generative and reproductive creatures. Hence, the vegetative soul is part of their being, but what makes them unique is that they possess the animal soul. And vice versa, plants do not possess the animal ability of the soul, which is sense awareness and emotional feelings. The highest, most perfect level of life is that of the intellect, Aquinas writes, for the intellect can reflect upon itself and understand itself and the world. Unsurprisingly, for those who are deeply familiar with Christian philosophy, theology, as well as classical philosophy, Aquinas marks out the highest life as the life of the mind, self-reflective, conscious, and possessing the intellect. The intellectual soul, and the soul is the intellect in Catholic theology, is what distinguishes humans from the rest of the creation. Yes, we too possess vegetative and animal souls in the sense that we have interior generative principles, our cells, and that we have emotional awareness and sensations, bodily feelings, but what separates us from the animals, who also share that, and the plants that share that, is that we have the life of the mind. As Aquinas says, the human mind, even though it can come to self-awareness, must start by knowing outside things, and they can't be understood without sense images. Thus, the intellectual soul is tied to the animal soul. Yet we go beyond that because we are the rational animals. The distinguishing feature of the distinction between the pure animal and the rational man is that man transcends through his intellectual soul, through his thought process, to a higher understanding of existence. He can understand good and evil, moral nature. He makes decisions based on a code of ethics. If the vegetative soul is grounded in generation and the animal soul grounded in sense awareness, the rational soul is grounded in understanding. This is possessed only by humans and also angels. However, while angels may be superior in their acme of perfection through superior intellects than humans, humans are superior to angels because they embody the tripartite soul, vegetative, animal, and rational, whereas supposedly angels only possess the rational. This goes back to Augustine's Trinitarian understanding of human psychology. Humans have the ability to generate life, the vegetative principle, have sense and spatial and emotional awareness, the animal, and have the ability to understand, the rational. This is why humans, and only humans, are made in the image of God. To be made in the image of God is to have the intellectual principle of life, the interior intellectual soul, the soul of the mind, for God is the divine mind. As Aquinas continues to explain, God is the all-encompassing soul which possesses the genus of all generation, all sensory awareness, knowledge of all things. Since humans are made in the image of the Trinity, the human soul is at once vegetative, animal, and rational. We can hopefully see the hierarchical chain of Aquinas' cosmic ladder of being. At the lowest end of the ladder of existence is non-living, non-soulful matter, though this non-living matter does serve a function for life. Life, soul, cannot exist without it, hence why the cosmos, even its non-living matter, is tied to the soul because it is tied to plant life, which possesses the vegetative soul. Without non-living matter, the vegetative soul, plant life, cannot exist. Above mere matter, then, is plant life, which possesses that vegetative soul of generation, which gives birth to all life. Above plant life is animal life, with the animal soul of sense and spatial awareness and emotional feelings. Animal life includes the vegetative soul, as animals are also capable of generation. They are also tied directly to plant life in the sense that they consume plants or perhaps other animals in order to continue their life. And above animal life is human life, with its rational soul to know or understand, but also including the animal and vegetative souls, as humans have sense awareness and feeling, the animal soul, and interior generative ability, the plant soul. And then again, above human life is, of course, the celestial realm of the angels, the transcendent, and God, which only humans, through the intellectual soul, have the capacity to know, thus linking the transcendent realm to the cosmic material realm. The human mind, the human soul, is the bridge between the transcendent and the corporeal. Yet, Aquinas was also a theologian and a Christian. The great ladder of being is also concentric. All existence emanated from the first generative act of creation, which came from God, the principle of all truth and existence in the world. Thus, as all comes from God, all directs back to God. This is why Aquinas concludes his discourse on the ladder of being by talking about God as the divine mind, the source of all existence, and the fountain of knowledge, which calls all creation to it. In another section of the Summa Contra Gentiles, Aquinas states, "You find the variety of things is achieved in steps, above inanimate bodies, plants, above them unreasoning animals, and above them, intelligent creatures. He continues, variety of forms also bring with it diverse relationship to matter, and these diverse relationships to matter bring with them a diversity of agencies, of wills, and capabilities of being acted upon. Aquinas' cosmos is not only interconnected and intertwined, it is diverse. It is a giant cosmic whole and not an atomized, separated, meaningless chunk of matter. Each individual aspect of the cosmos, each aspect of our soul, is united in a grand symphony of life. It is a very mystical or enchanted understanding of the world. Thus we see from Aquinas a living cosmos, a soul-filled cosmos, an intelligible world of life. It is a magical and mystifying cosmos, a cosmos of diversity and plurality, of particularity and instantiated uniqueness, all working together to reflect and embody beauty and goodness. That force which moves the ladder of being and everything part of it toward itself is love. Love, according to Aquinas, is the linking principle that unites everything. Hence why the ladder of being is fulfilled in love, who is also God.